Subscribe to the all-new HardLore Patreon now for early, ad-free access to every episode and an exclusive episode every month.
I never thought I was going to do any of this stuff. I thought honestly that Glen was going to do it. And I never thought that I would be the one trying to conceive projects and put these things together and do art, because Glen did all that back in the day. So I thought that's how it was going to be.
Right.
Of course.
But that's very difficult to match up the goals and whatnot of a label with the goals of an artist with that amount of money, and definitely differing opinions. And Jerry and Doyle also had different opinions on what should be done with these things and these masters.
And so does that mean that ultimately all parties declined this?
Oh, yeah. They united over that for sure.
Hello, welcome. It's HardLore time. How are you, Bo?
I'm doing so good. I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Ooh.
How are you, Colin?
You know, the flu couldn't stop me. Bronchitis couldn't stop me. I need to talk about the Misfits today.
Yep. Really do, dude.
So we have a very special guest here to do that with us.
Mm-hmm.
How do I introduce him? Let's see. If you own a copy of Static Age, this man is partially to thank for that. If you own the Misfits Coffin Box, this man is a huge part to thank for that. If you own a copy of 12 Hits from Hell, you might be in prison for the rest of your life. But this man was a huge part of the mythical, lost, infamous Misfits album that was supposed to be the 12 Hits from Hell. Please welcome, currently of Man Alive Records, formerly of Caroline Records, Tom Bejgrowicz.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, there, nailed it. Thank you very much.
You nailed it, yeah.
Very cool.
I totally knew how to pronounce his last name before today.
Of course.
How are you doing, Tom?
I am doing well. I'm in Athens, Georgia, and you're in Portland. That's right. Yeah.
Yes. I've been to Athens, Georgia.
Oh,
I played
okay.
there on a Cannibal Corpse tour.
Yes. And in fact, my host just told me that a few minutes ago. So there you go. And he saw that. Yeah. So there you go.
That was a good one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anything
All right,
like the old Athens?
No, but there is an Insomnia cookie, which I went to after the set.
Ah,
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
they're still kicking, huh? Insomnia cookies?
Fuck yeah, dude. They're open late. They're open later than Crumble. That's how I get it.
So true.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, we've brought Tom here today this was supposed to be our Halloween special, just so you all know.
Mm-hmm.
But Tom's home internet is
Thank you.
haunted. It's haunted.
Yes,
I would say.
it's ghastly.
So we reorganized, and here we are. And this is this is a record. It's not a real release at this point, but it was supposed to be. But this is the Misfits release that got me into the band.
That's crazy. That's cool.
Oh.
So thank
Explain
you,
that,
Tom.
Colin. Explain how you found it.
Think about their discography,
Oh,
and
I do every day.
how scattered everything is,
Yeah.
and how
sure.
the best recordings of each songs are on a different thing that never came out or came out later.
Yeah.
Hybrid Moments didn't come out until after they broke up. There's all these intricate things that, like, all these roadblocks that you would think would stop the average person from finding this band that somehow didn't. But for me, 12 Hits and the mix that Tom and Alan Duchess did,
Yes.
and the remix, I should say, is what finally made it all click for me.
Very interesting.
So I've just been dying to know why this thing never came to light. But before that,
Yeah. That's
I
the
wanna
end.
know-
That's the end.
that's the end.
Right.
I want to know,
right.
Tom, how did you get introduced to Glen and Jerry, and what was the first work you did with the band?
Well, I was working at Caroline already, but part of the distribution side of things. I was a sales rep for a mom and pop record stores around the country. And at the time, Lyle Preslar of Minor Threat, and then also, of course, Sam Hain, Meatmen, was general manager of the Caroline label, and label and distribution were on the same floor, but they were different, entities. So Lyle kept coming over to me while I was supposed to be making my calls to stores and kept asking me about, okay, and I didn't know why at the time, but he was asking me, what isn't released yet? What songs do you know aren't out there? What should come out? All these kind of things about the Misfits. And what was happening at the time was Glen, Jerry, Doyle, Robo, and Frank Licata, who's Franche Coma was his name, of course, on Static Age Sessions. Those four combined money to get a lawyer and go after Glen for royalties. It's similar in some ways to the claim that the other Dead Kennedys members had against Jello, in the sense that Jello had alternative tentacles, and of course Glen had Plan 9. And all the royalty checks go to one address, and that would be Glen's, and that would have been Jello. So they were suing because they weren't believing the sales numbers, and they thought they should be getting a substantial amount of money. And it was a substantial amount of money they sued for. So what Lyle...
But on all those recordings, the first thing you're going to see in every single one of those inserts is all songs by Glen Danzig.
Yes. Now that's, but as you know, that's writing and publishing.
Performance.
That's not performance. Correct. So for everybody to know that the royalties come in two different places, if you can. And obviously you guys know this. They'll come from the record label, and that goes to all the performers on that record under contract, at that time. But then publishing and songwriting is a completely different paycheck, comes from a completely different publisher, from different routes. That's why you have, I'm in Athens, right? In Georgia. So this is the home of REM, and REM made one of the greatest decisions ever when they started the band, because they knew all of the bickering of big money and everything, because Jagger and Richards in the Rolling Stones made literally 1,000 times more money than the rest of the band members. And that's going to create some sort of weird friction when it comes to the road and comes to life, right?
Sure,
so,
of course.
Yeah. So REM made the call to say, no matter who writes it, all of us wrote it. And they split everything equally. And to be fair, that band lasted forever as a 4-piece and the same 4 members. So it helped.
Interesting.
So, in these cases, all the money going to one address certainly, I'm not going to say one way or the other, but certainly caused some potential issues. Okay. So the guys were suing Glen over that. And so what was happening was Caroline had to be brought into the suit, because they need to be forced to, in order to turn over all sales figures, in order to prove the claims by...
And by was this 95, 96?
Yeah, so it's like 94, 95 when this was coming up. Yeah.
So what had Caroline released for the Misfits by this time?
Oh gosh. Right. Collection 1, Legacy Brutality, Evil Live, Earth AD.
So the collection has to be the majority of sales by this time.
A collection, it's now Collection 1, as it's called. Right. Sure. At that time, obviously, it was a huge thing. But then Legacy obviously came out a little later and did obviously incredibly well, as you were talking. And that's something we'll get to, because 12 Hits addresses streamlining a specific era of the band into one listen, versus what you were talking about, which Legacy and Collection, and even Collection 2 did by cherry picking from different eras. So
they're just like personal best ofs in Danzig's mind, I imagine.
I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to even call them best of if Ratfink or Spook City makes it over Hybrid Moments, right? I think we can all agree on that. So,
but what's interesting is Spook City is a Glen Danzig song.
Correct.
It was the B-side to Who Killed Marilyn, which is not a Misfits song.
Right. But then
that surely has something.
But then in the box set, I have the band version of it. So it all gets so difficult to navigate. And when I took over all this stuff, so Lyle's coming to me because the lawsuit's coming through, and basically in their mind, what they did was Caroline said, you know what, Glen, you're going to lose this case. So instead of you having to pay out, and I won't give the number, but the number was ginormous. Okay. But and especially in punk terms. I think when
right.
people are baffled by that number. So he was basically saying, hey, we could step in and we could pay that to Jerry and all them, and we'd even give you some money, but we're now going to own all of those records for the rest of time. So that was a choice, you know,
Sure.
and that was hard-nosed business, to be fair. I mean,
Was
that's
that the choice?
Yes, that's what went down. Yeah.
Okay.
Which one has to figure that ties into eventual reunions and live performances and stuff.
Well,
yeah. That well starts to dry up. How else are we going to make money?
So Tom, from what I've
Riot
heard,
Fest comes knocking.
From what I've heard, the initial suit ended with Jerry, Doyle, and co. getting the band and merch and the name.
Band name and ability to sell our own merch. Yep.
Glen gets the music.
Glen gets a publishing. See, again, there's a split there, right? You're talking. You just brought a publishing again, but I'm still talking about performance royalties and master recordings.
Right, but for future, for 94, 95 and beyond, was that the deal, or was it just they get to do that and I'm here?
Yeah, they got to do what all you said, except that now the records are no longer on Plan 9; they're on Caroline forever. Okay.
So now Caroline's paid all this money.
Mm-hmm.
They own those records.
Right.
Who starts the conversation to make Static Age finally come out?
So that was what Lyle was coming over to my desk a lot for, right? He was wondering what could we do in this situation. And I eventually turned to him and I just said, dude, why don't you just hire me and I'll do this? And you know what? He did. So that worked out well. So
hell yeah.
So we did. And I mean, it was a lot of pressure because the simple fact of how much money was put up front and, investment in this. So, okay. So what can you do with masters that have existed forever, right? And already out as far as you know. So now you've got to dig in and find out, okay. So there was a day where eventually in the conversations I would say I first met with Jerry and Doyle, came into the offices, and what was great is they came in all dressed up. I mean, for a meeting with Lyle and I mean, we were just like, you didn't have to do that, but it was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They were like, well, what do you mean?
Right. Yeah. This is how we are. I woke up this way. So, I mean, it was fun and they were great and they're so enthusiastic. Okay. And remember, this is a very different time. This isn't now where these reunion shows have been making. Everybody has general numbers in their head or what they've heard. And I don't know what those are for real, of course, but
I do.
Oh, okay. There you go.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Well, I mean, you would think so. That they're still going.
Yeah.
So everybody's got to be happy.
Oh yeah. But this was a time when there wasn't that. I mean, you got to remember, this is Jerry in like post Christ the Conqueror era.
Right.
This is Frank. Frank only recorded the Static Age sessions in 77, 78. So I mean, come on. This is a long time and they're vested because these are songs they performed on and are part of, and they're worth a lot of money, clearly.
Wow.
So, and Robo, obviously only played at the end with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of these guys did well by stepping up and offering to chip into the lawyer fund, and they paid off. So everything settles. So now Caroline has the masters. Now, do they? Okay. I didn't have them yet. So it was waiting on trying to, so we met Jerry and Doyle. They had their ideas. I didn't see them that way, the same way, but we did talk a lot about Static Age right away because of Jerry's cassette. It's a cassette, and it was a cassette of the decent mixes off the board from CI recordings. This is not some like master half-inch masters and things like that. So we knew that was on the plate. Well, obviously we wanted to do a box set. Obviously there were some other concepts involved. I had a 7-inch box set in play, and even the box design. I was going to have a hidden, a fake bottom, like the fake bottom to a drawer that you'd have things underneath, and a hidden 7-inch was going to be under there. And this was This was like when the internet was only raw, so it was only message boards, you know? So every kid would have been like, I found one. What? And everybody be flipping the fuck out, you know? So,
whoa.
So
Awesome.
that was fun to conceive those things. And Jerry was very enthusiastic and would say yes to everything at that point, you know, because he was like, yeah, let's go, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they've got it back.
Right.
They're excited about the future of the band now.
Yep. And rightfully so. Yeah. So then I had to switch to, of course, hoping. And look, here's it in the beginning. I had no conception that I would be as involved as I would have been. Because let's face it, to that point, Plan 9 and all those records, Glen did those records. He can do these records. Okay. So here it is. This is okay. So I'm just trying to facilitate, put ideas out. Let's coordinate this. And I would basically project manage it, you know, and see it through. Yeah. And then, you know, that's not really Jerry's thing. So, you know, it kind of leaned on me. And then I'm talking to Glen on the phone and we start talking and I start asking about these songs. I start saying these fucking song titles, like, you know, all the lore songs I read in zines, you know, interviews, you know, 15 years earlier. And he's like, what are you asking about these songs for? I'm like, well, A, we own them if they exist. Then B, they should come out because that's what we're doing here. And C is because I know you've mentioned that they were written and recorded, you know, in some shape or form. That could have been a room mic in a rehearsal space. I don't care.
But Caroline owns them regardless.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it was, but you know, see, this is already friction. I mean, I'm label guy. You guys know label guys. I'm not going to say that you feel that way about people. Oh, totally suit and tie, you know. Yeah. So
you white collar.
See here, we didn't have to tap into that very long. Thank you. But yeah, so I'm that guy now. And essentially he lost these masters. Right. So I'm not high on his list. You know?
Sure.
So
yeah, of course.
So it was a little frustrating for him to have me kind of picking and trying to get to the bottom of these things. He's like, I don't know if it was on a cassette somewhere. I don't know where it is. Maybe it's somewhere and I'll, you know, whatever. So eventually, his lawyer called and said, Glen sent all the master tapes from Lodi and, you know, his parents' house to his office, the lawyer's office. He's like, okay, so come over and get them. I mean, holy fuck, dudes. I mean, this is like Christmas. Right? Yeah, Christmas time. So, but of course, I'm both excited and skeptical. Does he send me everything? Is it really everything? What isn't going to be there? What is going to be there? So I had to go over. I went over by myself, taxi, held the taxi down at the bottom of this, you know, high rise, you know, lawyer's office thing, went upstairs, got it all. Dolly trucks, bring them down, put them in the back of a taxi cab trunk, sweating my ass off, and then went back to the office and unloaded and started cataloging them. And then, of course, and that was, of course, pretty exciting. And that was opening the tapes and you know, that haven't been opened in how many years. And then seeing if there were sketches, you know, or handwritten notes on them or in them and all the tracking sheets and all that, like just nerd amazing stuff. Right?
Where are these now, Tom?
Okay. My answer to that, Colin, is that they are in the large warehouse space that's at the end of Indiana Jones.
Oh, okay. Sure. That's the Congressional Archive.
Right next to the Ark.
Tom, were you, it sounds like it, but I'm going to ask anyway. You were a Misfits fan going into this, clearly.
Yeah, and I guess that's why Lyle was coming over, whether I was maybe talking a bunch, especially I had moved to New York City not long before that, before the sales rep job. That was my third job there. And therefore, and when you're in New York, you find a lot more boots, you know, and things like that. So collecting more things like that and trying to find the rarest stuff. So I think just in those kind of general conversations in the office space, he heard that and then started coming to me for that. I would say my brother, though, I got to give credit to my brother. He's 4 years older. He had a college radio show. He didn't party or drink or anything like that in college. So all he did, he took every Friday night shift that the college radio station had, and it would start off with like Style Council and the Jam and end up with GBH and Motorhead by the end of the night. And he really, you know, got me into
he saved lives.
Yeah, he did. I mean, So he really kind of helped bridge that gap from me as a classic rock and of course classic metal kid growing up into, you know, kind of exposed to these different, you know, genres and styles.
Beautiful. So while you're archiving all these things.
So the thing that I need to do is not only write down what I got, you know, type it out, quarter-inch reel, half-inch reel, multi-tracks, you know, whatever. And then some of them were unknown. So I had to, you mentioned Alan Douches earlier, and Alan was the mastering guy there. I never worked with him prior because I never mastered records. This is my first real gig. And I worked with Alan then the rest of my, you know, industry career. I love him. And
legendary mastering engineer, Cannibal Corpse, Deicide, Marauder.
Misfits. Yeah. I took him with me to Revelation, and I took him with me to Century Media then after that. So yeah, he's great to work with. So I sent all these tapes in, what was that little town? Teaneck, New Jersey, maybe? Anyway, small town in New Jersey. And then his task was to transfer them. Except, of course, remember how old some of these are.
Right.
So at the time, it was still new and still somewhat experimental. But at the time, Tom Petty's box set, they were old tapes, and they baked them. You guys know of this process? Is this new?
No.
Okay.
Do tell.
Okay, so information, of course, on an actual tape is magnetically adhered to it, but it can fall off and disappear. Okay, so it's not inherently part of the tape; it's on the tape. So Tom Petty's box set is through these really ultra rare early recordings. They put it literally in an oven, and I'm not talking a special oven. I'm talking your home oven. Okay,
Susie Homemaker's oven.
yeah. Put it in that avocado, turd brown, whatever color. Okay.
Burnt orange.
Yeah, exactly. And put it in that thing at a certain temperature. And how they figure this out, you know, how does anybody figure anything out? You know, you experiment and fail. But at a temperature for how long? And just enough to loosen the information on the tape. And then they brought the tape on and put it on the reels and did a quick transfer digitally. And that's what was happening at the time. So yeah, I know it was nerve-wracking, a lot of these moves, but you just kind of had to, you know, it's the only way you're getting it. And that included
let him cook.
Yeah. So that would even happened on the Static Age, which of course is later as well. But for the bonus tracks on the standalone release outside of the box set, those tapes were baked to get that information off in order to mix the bonus tracks. So
which that's like in the doorway and whatnot.
Yeah, in the doorway. I think I forget the 4 that were not originally mixed. Okay. Yeah, and boy, I was hoping for that to be what's the original version of Spinal Remains? That's another title. And I was hoping the lyrics were going to be on the scratch vocal tracks.
That's another question I have, Tom. We're not at the Coffin Box yet, but I noticed some of the lyrics even on the Misfits' own release are just not what he's singing. Is that just because that's what's written down somewhere?
Oh, you're talking about like printed lyrics?
Yeah.
Oh, look, that is a totally other thing. But I would tell you that by that point of the process, which we haven't, you know, walked through yet, but that part of the process wasn't fun. Yeah.
Okay.
It was just okay. So to backtrack that, obviously I already mentioned I'm the records label guy. I also represent, in essence, a voice of a company that now owns the masters of these records that were his. So on, you know, it was difficult. I had on one hand, I had Jerry and them who were just like, yeah, you know, anything you want, yeah. Big sweaty hugs and lots of yeahs and it was smiles.
Now,
and it was
speaking
fun.
of that, how collaborative between Glen and the Jerry camp are things like Static Age and the Coffin Box?
Okay. Ultimately, under the deal, I only needed to get one of those two parties' approval.
I
mean, how would I get both? Come on, you know, it's impossible. Sure. And the label knew it, the band knew it, everybody knew it. So that was a thing where I did not need to get both. And honestly, okay, so what I was also kind of starting to get into earlier was the fact that I didn't think I was going to do all this work on these records.
Right.
But with Jerry was, and I'm like, okay, but I'm going to do it. To be fair, look, just being straight up, I felt like I could probably, my vision, I felt believed in versus, his. Okay. Now, Glen's, obviously, you want to take very seriously. And I did. And I wanted to get him involved. And we tried to get him involved. But there was so much bitterness and resentment there.
Yeah, sure.
I couldn't break that wall down for my life. I flew out and to LA, met with him and his manager, and I gave him all my ideas for the Coffin Box, including all the like crazy stuff that Roger and I had come up with, which was like, if we did a special edition, should we make it wooden and make the creaking noise when you open it up? Things like that, right? And so Roger Gorman was the designer I brought on to see forth the vision, because of course I could just throw out ideas, but what's that mean? I can't make them real. I don't understand how to do that. So he had been doing the Wu-Tang Clan records in the 90s. And then he had been doing, he did a Sound of Vision box set, which won a Grammy for David Bowie. His brother painted and he designed the layout in Justice for All.
Wow.
Wow.
He did the Black Album. He did the Garage EP. Before that, he did Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime. I mean, the guy was all over the place. And so he taught me a lot of really interesting things. So one of them was, Tom, throw everything into your ideas. And if they don't like it and I think that's too much, even if they cut it back 50%, I bet you'll be farther than you would have if you didn't bother trying to push
smart.
it. Yeah, it was a great lesson. Cool. So I went with all these ideas. And that includes Dave McKean being hired for, to illustrate the booklet cover in the Coffin. Every track, Eerie writing the liners, the whole thing, everything outlined. And he gave me one of the best lines I've ever heard. It's just that I was the brunt of it. Okay. So he said, look, we went through everything. He said, I'm not here to be your friend or be your enemy. I'm just here to tell you what I think's cool and what I think sucks. And I haven't seen anything cool yet.
Glen saying this to you?
He said that to me across the table, and it was amazing and yet totally crushing. But I was in all of the phrasing, to be fair.
Because you're giving him everything. You're like, this is what could be.
Yeah. And then
it all sucks.
Yeah. Basically. Right. And but here's the thing. Everything I gave him is what I did because I did it anyway.
Okay.
So, okay. So then let's, if you want to compare, if we're going to dick swing for a second, you want to compare my box versus the Sam Hain box that came out in like 99. I mean, there's no comparison. That thing was a plastic, tray thing with the little slip discs, and it just, some kind of porn comic book or whatever it was. So, look,
So back to the treasure trove of tapes and reels that you got. Is there anything in there that is still unreleased to this day, aside from what ended up on 12 Hits?
No, between the box, Static Age, and 12 Hits. Yeah, that's it. That's it. And I mean that. There's I was hoping for like their version of Archangel. I was hoping for a different version of even, Die, anything. And that stuff wasn't there. It wasn't there. And then those songs I was getting on him about in the beginning, those really old ones, those like pre-77 ones when it was a 3-piece and he was on keyboards, when they were playing like Maxes and all that. No. Yeah. They would at best been on a cassette, room thing. And God knows, where those would be. Right. And that's okay. Wow. So, so no, that's all good. So it was basically going through those things and okay, what can we do with them? And what are repeats? What are just remasters? Or what's it just taking, 4 songs from that, 1/4-inch reel, and then you have another duplicate over here. And that was painstaking. And if I definitely heard a lot about it from the Coffin Box buyers at the time. So
it's like, hey, you want everything or not?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So we did what we could with what we had, and when it came down to art and all that, I certainly was not getting the cooperation that I was hoping for. Okay. So I just basically had to do it myself, you know. So that became.
And this is Static Age and the Coffin Box.
Well, Static Age was always, we literally left that on the plate. Glen was not a supportive of that idea. He felt
Static Age.
Yeah, he felt it came out as legacy. And, you know, again.
Which this is, the with the bonus tracks is 17 tracks.
Yeah.
Is that one session?
No, not one session. They were owed this. They only got that studio time because
of Blank, right?
Blank Records' name, which they had used prior to on the Cough Cool 7-inch. And then Blank Records was a band named Perubu, who was more of a part of what would have been called like the college, you know, music, alternative music wave early on in a post-punk way. And those guys already had something with a major, and I forget which one, but as called Blank. And so basically to change that name, they were given 30 hours of studio time at CI. Yeah. Which is a major
and
studio.
0 hours of bass intonation.
I don't even fucking think about it.
But that was all fixed later.
Well, we did what we could.
That?
Again, it's working with Jerry's cassette was the 13 tracks, 14 tracks. It's been a bit. Don't hold me to it. Yeah. Okay. So that went that as in the box set. That extra CD that came in the extra pack, and I don't know which version of the box set you guys do or don't have, but there's the original one was all the black plastic with silver stamp stuff, and there was a fourth disc that had the back that had to be like pushed on and slid up in order to open it up for Static Age. And that
check and see if you have that, because I don't think mine is that one. I have the other one.
Yeah, I call the other one the accountant version.
I have the accountant version.
Yeah, and it happened after I left Carolina.
Listen, it's the best Mama Boa could do. Okay,
she did great. Wendy did exquisite.
Wendy,
yeah. So that version of Static Age that you're dealing with right now, that is Jerry's tape straight up. Mastered.
This is it.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was no special master for those kind of things. It was straight up.
Well, it does say mastered by Alan.
Exactly. Right. Okay. He mastered it. I'm just talking about like from a half inch or quarter inch or something. Okay. It was just off Jerry's literal cassette.
Gotcha. So, but these first 14 songs, this was the Blank Records exchange session.
Yes,
this is the 30 hours,
including the bonus songs when it came out on its own. All 17 were done in those sessions. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
hell, the amount of fucking hits in this session is crazy.
It is crazy. You do have to think about it this way, and you guys know this. And when you start a band or you started a first band, you have time, and say that band gets signed. You had a year, 2, 3 years as a band before anybody heard of you or you ever got signed, and you had all that time to write songs. And then you have to write another one in how many months after touring for a year?
But that was the crazy thing to me is like that follow-up is 12 hits technically.
Yeah, that's pretty darn close.
And that's Thriller bad.
It's true.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
And people don't know that to this day.
Right.
It's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
We'll get into that, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
So what came first, the standalone Static Age release or the Coffin Box?
The Coffin Box. Yep. And then when
you had to fucking get this Coffin.
Yeah, right.
to hear these songs.
Yeah, it was the first time. Of course, the third disc in there is the first time any of those alternate versions and rare versions and stuff were ever put out officially. Yeah, they were all bootleg before that. So that's all that stuff that was in the masters was those that disc 3 of things that hadn't been touched before. So that was, of course, exciting, so people didn't have to have a boot. These were mastered. They were all compiled into, a collection. And
as far as fans are concerned, it's an official, like, it's official.
We did,
because like, yeah, exactly. Like they think the band did it. They don't know the ins and outs of what had just happened necessarily. So,
and that's why how would we know that until Tom is telling us that right now?
It's all rumor. Otherwise,
so the Coffin Box was a Jerry and Doyle signing off on operation.
I could say that there was also in the contract that if somebody didn't reply in 10 days, non-approval. A non-approval is an approval. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure. Hey.
So, who approved it or who didn't? I don't know.
Okay.
Did you put the booklet layout together as well
for the box set?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, as far as images Jerry supplied to me, or the textures and backgrounds and all that.
That seems like an approval as well.
Sure.
There's a picture in there, Colin. If you could flip to where
my
Doyle
booklet is still at Taylor's house.
Son of a bitch! But there's a picture where Doyle he's holding up his guitar and it looks like something out of Mad Max or something. Mm-hmm. I used to I remember Christmas morning opening this up and flipping through this booklet.
Aww.
Just page by page, and just obsessing over it.
Wow, that's amazing.
So thank you, Tom.
That was a Christmas gift. That's so cool.
Yeah, my mom got me it for Christmas, I think 7th grade.
That's awesome.
Wow. So the Coffin Box is out there.
Yeah.
People are finally hearing officially released versions of these songs. Mm-hmm. Static Age getting a standalone release, is that immediately the next plan, or is that...
Oh yeah,
kind of a slow roll.
That's in the works. That was in the works the whole time. It was just trying to do my best to see if I could get everybody lined up.
Okay.
That always, like I said, didn't happen. So, but here's the thing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, no matter how things were going, good or bad, and it was not easy. It was not always fun. It was difficult. These guys had a very contentious relationship. Everybody understands that. Right. And it was a different time. And to be fair, all of this, no matter what I've already said or I may say, is that this was my first real gig. Okay. Right. So could I, and now, 30 years later, could I have done something differently? Of course. And does part of me wish I did? Maybe. I'm not sure what it would have been, but could it have brought people together? I don't know if this like 25 turning 26-year-old dude could have overcome all that.
Right.
There's a lifetime.
They got brought together. So it all worked out.
Yeah. Yes, it did. It did. It was just trying to do, there's a constant pull because of the fact that Caroline did believe in this and invested heavily into this. And even the Coffin Boxset, the VP of the company, CFO, these people were like not loving the fact that some of these printing dies, the dies that you held up in order to push that Static Age type out from the plastic to do, that was a toy company that made those for us, out of, and you're talking about the metal dies that were made to do that are tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And you're investing this in just the process will make something when you could have just did Bo, 2 double discs and the accountant version. And so
was this a success?
Yes, it was. There were 50,000 printed of the version that you have in your hand there, Colin, and that was gone. That was not gone before I left in '97, but it had already recouped and had done quite well for itself, which is great. I think because it was one of those cheesy line moments from the movie about you build it, they will come. I mean, we didn't cheap out on it. Obviously, we didn't do the wooden, with the creaking sound, limited
There's
edition.
Still time.
Who could afford it? And there's still time.
Right. So I think we did it for what we could, and it did go gold. And that's cheap. That's a slight cheat because of the fact that it has 4 discs, so it only has to sell 125,000.
Is that
copies.
How that works?
That's how that works, dude. So release a double album, and you got twice the chance to get a gold record.
So like George Harrison's record's a triple LP.
Yeah, but that's probably still at least at 12 mil, but
but it makes you think. Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, so it did well.
The Static Age recordings and stuff that like people knew about it, right? Because it had been rumored, and I remember, Colin, who did we speak? We spoke to someone on the show who there was like, oh yeah, when Static Age came out, I like ran to the record store to get it because it was.
I don't know, forget who we were. I would have to imagine, just as a fan, these things finally hitting the streets in real time was pandemonium.
It was fun. It was fun to see it, to be fair, you know. This fan base is so beautifully aggravating. Yeah. Obsessively, you know, helpful. I'm trying to put two words together that almost mean the opposite thing.
Sure.
It's a very difficult, once you have that kind of fan base, it's very difficult to do anything without being ridiculed for it by a good chunk of the people, because it's held in such reverence. Everybody feels they would do a better job or a different thing, and it should have been this and should have been that, and that's fine. At the time, I was probably, because I was just, you know, 20s angry as fuck, and you know, but now I can appreciate that, but it's not what I wanted to hear at the time for all I was doing. So, so when it came to Static Age itself, Jerry's cassette as it was, and that's how we really believed in it. It's why it's in a box set that way, because that first meeting with Jerry and Doyle, and they're so excited, and they bring this, and we're listening to it and hearing actual bass, you know, and thickness of that recording versus the legacy stuff, and you know, those versions which were tinny and thinner, you know, there's no doubt, and they're different. So hearing this was so exciting. So actually, we had a Teenagers from Mars one-sided 7-inch slated for release. It was going to be etched on the second side with the Crimson Ghost, and you know, of course, colors, and it was going to be, you may have seen the shots over the years of Jerry wearing that Teenagers from Mars jacket, and he's turning around. He's got the blue hair, and you know, that's that era.
Red jacket.
Right. Those photos. So we were considering, you know, doing that to debut it, because we felt that song really brought forth the true recording sounds and vibes that were at the time.
So are you telling me, if I pop this CD in and put it on, is it a different master than I would hear on something like Spotify?
Oh, I don't know. If Spotify has the complete 17 song version, you know, with the actual artwork, the individual release, then it probably is. Sure. Because when we put together the actual solo and added the bonus tracks that we mixed out of Dallins, then everything obviously was treated. We mixed to match the style of the 14 songs. God knows, part of me wanted to remix that record, but we did not have the multi-tracks of everything in time, and the cost of it was something that Caroline was not into. So we just remixed the bonus tracks, and we mixed them to match the best we could. But of course, it's a different era, it's a different time, and you know, it's not exactly the same. But honestly, when you don't know what I'm telling you, nobody knows. You can't tell. You just go with you go with the flow, you know? So it's like, even live, if one of you guys would miss a small thing or two, the people that are out there who know that song already are almost filling that in on their own.
Yeah, they don't want to hear it filled in. They know it's inauthentic that way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all good. So anyway, so when we did that, that's what came out there. And then at that time, it was just reviewing and liner notes and giving it its own special spotlight. So, and that leads to somewhat where I end up, of course, with 12 hits, is because if you look at
when Static Age finally comes out on its own, is that something Glen approves of, or is that, how do the conversations go with him about that?
He was never particularly sold on it.
Okay.
But we made a little bit of a concession with him, and the extent that we released Collection 2, which he put together before even the Coffin Box. Because if you go to the releases in order, as far as my time period went, Collection 2 came out in, I want to say, late 95, October, November, and then Coffin Box was late February 96, and then you had Static Age in 2000, maybe.
There's the Collection 2 track list.
Yeah, so the chorus that was included in there because of the fact that we were putting, you know, the releases in there. So
he just needed Ratfink on there, huh?
This was, and I'll tell you that the Collection 2 masters were not new. This is something he had in mind for some time.
Gotcha.
And he wanted to do it that way. And I wasn't thrilled about it, but this is what we do.
Sure.
And I wanted him in some ways to be so excited to take charge, to run with this, to get out the rarest, coolest stuff and run with it. It just never happened. But again, I can't, it didn't make my life any easier, and it made me upset sometimes, but I can't also blame him, because I feel like it was just a situation that how was it ever going to be great?
No, of course.
Right. It was set up.
It was the kind of, he really had no option.
Yeah.
Here,
it's really funny. It's funny too to think of Rat Fink and think of some of the songs that are like insisted on or put in there, and then you watch videos or even listen to Evil Live, and it's like none of those songs.
All hits.
Right.
It's only hits. It's it's such an interesting. It's like almost two different bands, live versus recorded, even in the mentality.
Sure. And of course, they changed the guitars, so much, and a lot that even the style of how that was played and the speed it was played, which of course
I think we're about to get into that.
Sure. Right.
Big time.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. No doubt.
Okay. Well, this might be it. It might be time to talk about 12 hits. So Coffin Box goes gold.
Yeah.
We now know.
Right.
Static Age probably goes gold, right?
I don't know. It doesn't.
At this point.
But it was great. Oh, I don't know now. Yeah. Who knows now? Obviously, it's been so long. Sure.
The songs are household names.
The songs are gold. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Right.
Now you've held off on the 12 hit sessions because you've said that this is it. This collection of songs, this session, this is all that's left. Or is that something where when you're going through the archive, you're putting these aside to be like, don't worry, we're going to do this separately?
Totally missed the ball on this potential record those first few years. Okay. I did. Maybe that's because of the en masse of stuff coming at me. But here's the only thing that triggered me that this would even be a thing is that on the MSP, which is the studio, Master Sound Productions masters, the multi-track masters, on those, written inside on a back of a sheet or the box, I don't remember which, is Glen's handwriting with side 1 and side 2 with an actual track listing. And that's the first time I really even saw it or took notice of it to say, oh, fuck, he wanted this to be an album. And why wouldn't it be an album? This should be an album. And I want to make it an album. That's it. That's where it came from. And so it's his handwriting. If you have any copies of it, and I have one of my 2 CDs on it, in that the track listing written on the back is written in Glen's handwriting because it's scanned. That's how he wrote it on that master tape.
How many of those copies are out there, Tom?
I would say that I think there were 2,000 promos sent out. Yeah, and those are a mix. Some of them with art, and this of course one with the art, and then this isn't even promotized, so that's good for me. And then there were those. You can probably find some of these too, or see them on eBay or whatever when people are selling these. They're the blank ones. They're just the black ink on the CD. And they were for press, and so they were going to press, and those commonly came with a press release. I don't even have one of those. I never saw that. So those went out, and then things went south.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So in '78, they do this big Static Age session, 30 hours, 17 tracks. They do not much with it. It doesn't come out as an album.
Right.
Which
it doesn't.
1982 years later, Master Sound Productions, they go, okay, this is it. This is the full length.
Right. And
they record these 12 hits.
Yeah.
And then once again, decide that they're not good enough.
Well, I don't know if we can pin it on that. Then that's an angle, and it could be the way it is. My thought has always been the simple fact that, of course, they're releasing it themselves. What a pain in the ass it is to come up with the money and manufacturing the distribution to sell an entire record. It is so much easier to print a few 7 inches with your favorites, give them away to friends, take them to shows, carry them to shows. So much easier than even 12 inches
sure.
and less costly. So I kind of think it's like, well, what do we do with these? And it's funny because, not that we're going back to Static Age, but if in this kind of rollout of what could be albums, I mean, in talks with Ian MacKaye over the years, he's like, he literally wonders about if 2 or 3 records would have came out for real. And that's like Death from Detroit is one of his favorite underdogs that never got any attention. And of course, if Black Dots, which I organized at Caroline too, if those original Danzig Terror sessions came out when they were recorded, and he thinks about what Static Age would have did if it came out in 1978 to the punk scene. And there's no question. So I don't know if it would, I think they knew and they loved this stuff, but was it a matter of budget and funding and whether we could do this?
It was a lack of interest in a label?
I have no idea. I don't know how they shopped themselves or didn't shop, Because
instead of continuing to shop Static Age, like, hey, we've got all these incredible songs, trust us, they're amazing, they just do it again without another plan.
Yeah, it is interesting. It is not by the book. There you go. It's not by the book. There's no doubt. It is. I don't know what it was like for them at that point to say why it was, but it certainly can be confusing. And it was only made more confusing by Collection and Legacy coming out with these rare odd years on next to songs. Like, why? What is this? But yet at the same time, you cannot dismiss the amazing mystique that Glen created by doing those things.
100%.
It's almost like he knew. Like, I like to believe that he knew. He's like, no, we're going to save it because in 25 years, people are going to lose their minds over it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I
choose to believe this.
Yeah, I would.
While touring their asses off.
Yeah.
And playing these songs and people know them somehow, right?
Yeah, right. And that's hard. That's hard for people to comprehend today that it was by scene. And just because you existed in New Jersey didn't mean anybody in LA knew who the hell you were.
Right.
And how could you pull that off? Well, playing there, sure. Maybe, putting on a show with Black Flag in Jersey or New York and then trading that with them out there. But that could take a year and a half till you get out there for money. And the shows are not popularly attended. That is a misnomer. If anybody feels like they were huge at the time, anybody was playing out. There are exceptions like Flag, of course, playing, Civic,
Palladium.
and Santa Monica Civic and Palladium too.
Well, there's a story of Black Flag and the Misfits playing, I think, the Mabuhay Gardens. And one played upstairs, one played downstairs, and it was 2 separate shows at the same time.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's crazy.
Why would you even do that?
I don't know.
Pictures of like Rollins meeting that for the first time
I love
is like
shots.
That was that show. That show.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's like, even then, it's like such a special little thing that you just had to kind of be around to.
Yeah. This isn't easy because somebody one person is sharing it with 1,000 people or 40,000 people or 100,000 people on some Instagram post. It was very difficult to get this word around. So I don't know what those reasons are that they didn't pursue these things in the same way or didn't release them entirely as they are. But I don't think you can't change 1 ounce of their story and think it's going to end up the same. So it had to be this way. And it was that way. The mystique, the frustration, the wanting more, the bootlegs, everything that happened with it.
Culture, created an entire culture. It wouldn't have been the same if you could just buy this at Borders this whole time. I do think 12 Hits, 100% to this day, is the best collection of Misfits songs.
It's a great era.
Halloween, Vampira, I Turned Into a Martian, Skulls, London Dungeon, Night of the Living Dead, Horror Hotel, Ghouls Night Out, Astro Zombies, Where Eagles Dare, Violent World, Halloween 2.
Yeah. I know.
That's the best album ever.
And I know, and the way you were speaking about Static Age earlier felt like you could say the same thing about that one.
100%.
Right.
But it's like in terms of a follow-up and like establishing what you are.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never seen 2 pieces of music back to back that are just like, we're this and we're fucking this. Fuck you.
Right.
And we broke up 25 years
and we're
ago.
done.
Right. Yeah. But the
so
thing
the lineup.
Yeah,
sorry.
But you never saw. Nobody ever saw the music that way because that's not how it happened. So 12 hits basically comprises, of course, 3 hits from Hell, Night of the Living Dead single, and a Halloween single, and puts them all in one. But they were released independently of each other over time, and so it never felt cohesive. Or it never felt like this is the next monster. This isn't Pink Floyd following up Dark Side of the Moon with Wish You Were Here. I mean, come on, right? Yeah, I know. And in essence, in the punk realm, yeah, for sure. So,
but it's like, was that not their intention?
I honestly think they were just kids kicking ass and writing this stuff and doing the best they could when there's not a lot of money involved and not a big scene.
Here's the other factor in question here. The lineup started during the session as Glen, Bobby, Jerry, Arthur.
Yeah.
By the end of the session, Bobby's out, Doyle's in.
Correct.
So half on the album, on these recordings, do we have Bobby's guitar and Doyle's guitar, or is it song dependent?
No, it is always together, always both. Every I would say, you know what? I wonder if there's maybe on Halloween 2. I don't think Doyle tracked. I'm not gonna like make us think about that or like plant that down, but I don't. There was one song maybe that had none, and it changed. So in order to have these things, and you can even see this on the 3 hits from Hell 7-inch. The 3 hits from Hell 7-inch on the back credits additional guitar on London on I forget which of the tracks by Bobby Steele, and then the big London Dungeon riff is played by Robbie Alter, who was the producer or like producer in the session.
What?
And that states that on the artwork. I mean, it's there for anybody who has a copy of it. So, so that stuff wasn't hidden. It's just that because it was so, nobody knows what's going on except for them.
They're playing pickup games. They're playing like, who's around? Who can you play this? Like, they're just.
I mean, Doyle.
It's so crazy.
Doyle has the look. Doyle is that guy.
Of course. And he was also 16 when he joined. Like,
exactly.
He was like the kid. You know?
Yeah, him and Erie were in the same class, and they were both that young.
Now, was that something where do you know if it was like Jerry being like, don't worry, you're going to be in. Just keep practicing, keep lifting weights, and we'll get you in.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. So by the end of the session, Doyle's in the band, Bobby's out.
Yes,
to answer, correct. Colin, to answer that question, on Misfits Central on the timeline, they're like Bobby saw Doyle's guitar, like the prototype before, and he was just like, what's that? And they were like, don't worry about that. It was like it was definitely there.
Okay. That was definitely the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just, what boggles my mind the most is that, and listen, don't get mad at me. You want to get mad at me, it's fine. Walk Among Us is the weakest of the 3.
I
agreed.
100% agree. 100%.
Totally agree.
And that's the one that was worthy of being the only official debut album.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, there's and look, and again, all this stuff was a long time ago. So recently I had gone through some communications about this from the time, and then also my own thoughts on it. And one of those things was my goal with 12 hits was to create a scenario where you have Static Age, you have 12 hits, and you have Earth AD. And in my mind, you have it all. I mean, yeah, you have the Coffin Box, fine. But as far as the albums, those albums really do cover the 90 percentile of that band's existence.
Those are the definitive songs.
Yeah,
to me.
Those are the 3 sessions that nailed down the best material in the best way. There's no doubt.
100%.
And kind of, they like chapter each era of the band.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So my counterpoint to all the mystique, because it still existed, it was always going to be there, but is creating order from chaos. So my goal was to have Static Age, and now it was on its own. Now I have 12 hits, and of course Earth AD was out. And then you could feel like you could walk into a record store, buy those 3 records, and feel like, if I don't have any more, I did it. I got it. Yeah.
Okay.
And so
God, what a world that would have been.
Huh? And I wanted to, and for the record, I wanted to mix all 3 of those records. I already mentioned that about Static Age, and obviously it was mixing 12 hits. I wanted to remix Earth AD so badly to make it the most powerful fucking thrash punk record without question of sonics, because there's always some sort of question of sonics in this conversation.
Is that something, I know Alan still works with them to this day.
I understand he does.
He did the Graves records as well. So you would think maybe there's some door open for him to still do Earth AD.
Well, I would say that you'd have to figure out where those masters are. I don't recall having
goddamn masters.
Well, the thing is, I know. And the issue with that is too, because that was out west, that was with Spot. The Spot who was really produced most of SST stuff in SoCal. So where those tapes are, who knows?
So those might not be under the porch where the fucking ski resorts were and shit. Those were elsewhere.
Right.
Pardon this interruption. We've got to tell you about some very important things real quick. Bo, you just finished up a 2-year-long tour, it felt like.
Yeah.
And I noticed you were in great health and in great shape the entire time.
I felt energized. I felt good about myself because I knew I was taking care of myself. And you know what?
You knew you were getting all of the daily probiotics and prebiotics and vitamins that your body was missing before you started drinking AG1.
Oh, I brought 30 little packets with me for a 30-day tour, and I had one every single day. I did not miss a day. Yeah.
Healthy as an ox-horse hybrid.
Both things.
Unbelievable. And this could be you. You got to go to athleticgreens.com/hardlore, and you're going to get 5 free travel packs with your order.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to love that little bottle. You're going to love the metal scoop. All the good stuff is so fun. What else do they get, Bo?
They also get a year's supply of the vitamin K and D drops, which, hey, daylight savings just happened. We're going into winter. You all need your vitamin Ds. You all need it.
I got a drop of vitamin D in my tea with me right here, and I'm just feeling so cozy and comfortable. This episode is also brought to you by Manscaped, per usual. I noticed you also smell delicious. Could you smell my balls at the show?
Of course. I feel like we're on a ball smell wavelength, you and I.
Yeah, it's the same smell. Yeah, you
really
preserver?
Yeah, we're in the same plane.
Somebody's balls are revived.
Colin's
this is fantastic.
Yeah,
exactly. Balls. Good balls. This could also be you with code HardLore. You're getting 20% off Manscaped site-wide and free shipping. That's the greatest deal I've ever heard in my whole life.
It's the best deal on the planet.
Agreed. Don't mess it up, okay? Your balls are shriveling away.
And you know what else is right around the corner? Christmas time.
Christmas is so close.
Manscaped
you tell them HardLore sent you.
That's right.
They'll say, what?
Who?
They say, wash your balls, Dad. HardLore sent me.
Mm-hmm.
He'll say, go to your room or I'll kill you. But then he'll be clean, finally. And you know he's needed it for a long time. Merry Christmas, Dad. You smell good now. This episode is also brought to you by Mad Vintage.
People ask us all the time, where do we get this?
Where'd you get this shirt? Where'd you get this hat? Where'd you get this hoodie? Where'd you get that Sam Black shirt you're wearing right now? That's very poignant to the topic of this week. The answer's Mad Vintage.
He's got classic rock. He's got hardcore. He's got metal. He's got punk rock. He's got wrestling. He's got like NASCAR. He's got it all. If you're into vintage stuff, Mad Vintage is the place to go.
It's simply maddening how many good things he's got.
Yeah.
So you got to go there. You got to go right now. You put in code HardLore15. You're going to get 15% off. And some of this stuff adds up, man. You know the vintage market right now is out of control. So we're doing what we can to help you bring it back down.
And also, please help us by taking some cool stuff, because Colin and I cannot physically contain more shirts.
Please, God.
Please take the good stuff.
Too many shirts.
Also,
that's a great problem to have, and it could be your problem too.
And if that is a problem that you have, Luke of Mad Vintage is always looking to buy your vintage shirts.
That's
Just reach right out through the Instagram and make a deal.
Hit him up and enjoy this landmark episode of the show. Bye. So with 12 hits, were you kind of on your own here, or are Jerry, Doyle, and Glen helping in some way?
I thought I had companionship, but turned out I was on my own.
Okay, because you've said Coffin Box, nobody responded, so it got to happen. Static Age, did someone sign off or did nobody respond?
I think I relied on non-response for everything.
Dude, Tom, you are a genius.
It's crazy.
So, what you're telling me basically is you're a fucking genius.
But that ran out. Strike 3 was 12 hits.
Well, it was, So I look, I will tell you that I did everything as it was, and as it had happened before. Now, what we need to remember here is we have a 4-year gap since I left Caroline. Lyle's long gone. I already had another GM after Lyle. Named Keith Wood, who ran Caroline prior to Lyle even. And Keith was great. Keith was very supportive. He's an Englishman. He's an old Virgin Records guy. So Virgin from UK and London. Yeah. Great dude. He was fine. Everything was good. And then we're all basically gone. And I come up with this idea. So now on a day-to-day in a Caroline, you have people who never dealt with how litigious and how contentious and how difficult it is to navigate the waters. Okay. So
the Misfits waters in particular?
Yes.
Those orange waters.
When I look back at the emails that I have from literally when it was falling apart, it initially started off with a lot of support for me because I'd done these things to date and it had been very successful.
Sure.
By the end of it, it seemed that there was a lack of comprehension on why it was done this way. But
what does this way mean? Real?
Yeah.
Well, in kind of having to do, look, Caroline had every right to release these recordings in the way that they saw fit because of the fact that they bought them. Okay. Yeah. So there's a fine line there between that and art. And I respect both as an artist myself in my own right. It was very difficult to ride that rail. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes like when I pitched all this stuff to Glen and he didn't like it for the Coffin Box, and I called Lyle and I said, literally the line I gave him, he picked up and, hey man. And I said, should I quit or do you want to fire me? It's hard. It was difficult to deal with so much more. It was so much larger than I was.
And you're 26.
Yeah, about that at the time.
I'm not. I'm barely timed. I'm forgetting socks at 26. You know.
It was, and that was a lot. And I also had. I also worked with Bad Brains in that time. I also worked with Hole. So I had Courtney in the year after Kurt killed himself. I mean, these were not easy waters, either. And it was a lot to figure out, and it was a trial by fire. And look, I've said earlier, look, here's the thing. There can be some sort of puzzlement, or maybe I'm not 100% open about every single facet of this thing, but it's also because, could it have been better? Should it have been better? Yes, to both. And I wish it would have been. But again, I can't change it. And if I changed it, then none of it would be that way.
Right.
So I just have to live with it as it is and deal with how it all went down as it is. And so I had to work within the contract. So I worked within the contract legally at every stance, including on 12 hits. Mm-hmm. And at some point, because I was not there fielding this, I was not, I had the defense of Caroline for years, as far as even the lawyers, and they're like, oh, no, this is all good. You did what you had to do. I did it. I have the letters which present to the band my ideas for 12 hits. And I don't have any rejection until much, much, much later. Okay. And that's the way it is. And so it was disappointing because I was freaking amped on that thing.
So you're essentially working by yourself here. It's not like you've got the active support of the band.
I had active support. Like I said, I believed I had that. And
you were not led to believe otherwise.
Okay. But I'll also I'll also say this. I will say that part of the letter when I pitched this entire thing, which I did to somebody directly on the phone, by the way, but then I actually sent it to the lawyers. When part of that pitch says oh boy, and I don't know if I can find that actual notation. It clearly says that we will not know exactly what to do and what's on there until we actually hear the tapes. Okay. So when I got to the tapes and I'm hearing this, and so I had Alan take those tapes and run them in multi-track and give me a flat mix, which is, one of anybody had something mastered by Alan. There's this green paper. It was every piece of paper, and so this is like a reference. Okay. Of
and please.
Yeah, it's the 13 tracks because of course London Dungeon had a
alternate
take. Yeah, that's the only song they played twice. The only song they performed twice in that session.
There's a lot of stuff in that song, a lot of noodling in the back.
Yeah, and it's amazing to hear it because you can hear it in the alternate version because it's not piled on with the effects on the guitar.
Oh.
So you hear that raw riff. And it does change it almost completely in some ways because you don't have that hugeness, that like echoing, like you recorded it in a warehouse, kind of thing.
A dungeon even.
Yeah, perhaps, if you will. So he did that for me. And then I basically listened to these rough mixes and then started to kind of navigate what I wanted to do with them. And then that's when I started hearing all of Bobby.
Yeah.
And these recordings.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you'd look at me and think, he probably heard all that and said, nah, let's get Bobby out of the mix and not bother with it and only run Doyle? Not at all. So I was sitting there going, these are our tapes. I've already told them. And I even noted that I don't even know necessarily what's going to happen with this until I hear them, which was the truth. And it is the truth. And now I'm sitting here learning and I'm like, yeah, but I can move forward. Because this is
again,
real.
we own this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That was my approach. Now, look, if somebody wants to debate that legally, go for it. I don't care. It's a done deal. It matters nothing to me. But when I'm sitting there listening to these things, and I'm hearing these, Jesus, Vampira alone. It's like you're hearing Bobby do surf guitar. Is essentially what it is. It's like, it's beautiful work. And what creates the beauty for this recordings is the fact that who would think that would work in this? So there's
something spooky about surf guitar, though.
I know.
It's all the key changes, and it's
You've heard the black metal surf guitar comparison, I'm sure.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
It's great. It's almost the same music. It's interesting, but
how you present it, is completely different, right?
Now, Bo, have you heard Bobby's re-recording of the entire album with his band, The Undead?
I'm sure I have in the past, but admittedly a long time ago.
It's pretty crazy, but then you hear the way some of the stuff is played.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that was you.
Aha, I see. I need to revisit.
The stank on the way some of those things are played.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that was like, Bobby, you just did that. You were not told to do that.
You can hear the thread for sure. He was a very cool addition to that lineup.
Right.
I need to revisit that. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I just wasn't going to walk away from it.
No.
Good.
So I embraced it. And you're talking about, and look, the first contention that was addressed and brought up from the other side of the coin here was that the liners weren't accurate. And that's not true either. All my liners deal with the simple fact that literally pointing out that Bobby's recording multiple tracks per song. Doyle was doing one. And that's not belittling. I'm just trying to tell,
hey, I'm here. I have this.
Yeah.
I'm listening to this.
Yeah.
This is what's happening.
Right. So I'm not making it up. Even though we've had issues, I always thought, Doyle and Jerry were great. They were fun. They were good people. And none of this was personal, even with Glen, even if we didn't see eye to eye and maybe we butted heads, none of this had anything to do with that. I'm coming at this from a fan.
You're doing this as a fan. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
So I'm hearing this. I'm like, well, if I want to hear this, other people want to hear this. And there's no doubt we want to hear this. So, okay. So going through it, I was just mapping down the logistics and that came up. So as far as liners, and I was like, okay. Well, obviously, so I wrote back to Caroline and was very clear about, look, this, when I said this, it's because this is real, fact, truth. It's on the tapes. Here, if I wrote this line addresses this because of that. And I went like line by line because
sure, of course.
I was feeling the defensive somewhat, being, thrown under the bus.
Yeah.
So the first red flag is that they don't agree with the liner information.
That's what was, I'll say that's what was said. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And
is that, how do they feel about the rest of the layout? Is the artwork itself something that they see and go, we can't have this out there?
I think they publicly said that. I've never known, and again, that's where I felt thrown under the bus a bit, I guess. Right. Because of course I did that, and then of course I wrote the liners, and but
that artwork was like a faithful recreation of something that had already existed, right?
Yeah.
No, actually. Those 4 pictures are Erie's, and I combined them into something. And
okay, so you just made that.
Mm-hmm. And Glen on the back, the skull and crossbones on the back, is actually a detail of Glen's. That's the skull and crossbones shirt he always wore.
Right.
Yep.
And then the photos were supplied by Erie. They were not taken by Erie, but they were from that era. And and I just stood by that. And I also stood by the fact that I did do the same things I had done before to get a record moving forward. And that, because of, again, the fact that I wasn't there for 4 years, these people were all dealing with it internally at Caroline for the first time. And it was a lot for them to comprehend and understand. And also, you don't quite understand what it's like to be gone after sometimes until you're in it, so all of a sudden they're now realizing the force that they're dealing with. And so
in what way, what is the pushback like from the band regarding 12 Hits?
Oh my gosh, it was, I was literally looking these last few minutes, and it's so manyfold. At that time, it kind of burst open the gates of complaints, I guess. I'm noted as producer, but I don't say that I produced the record. I produced the recordings I didn't produce. I produced this, this output. Yeah. To the use of that, to guitar credits, of course, that was obviously a major issue. Yeah. Remix capabilities, and I outlined that, yes, of course we do need, permission for that, but that was in the request originally, all these kind of things. Look, and I found along the way, of course, that these things happen, that managers don't always share all these things. Right. Artists don't always understand these things or pay attention to them, because it's just it's boring stuff, seems like. Right. But ultimately, it was happening, and the issue is, and so when I say in the thanks that I thanked the guys, well, yeah, of course I thanked the guys. This music is incredible. You know what I mean? And but see, the label was like, why did you thank these guys if all of them weren't specifically involved? And I'm like, because it's their music. What? And I them at the end of the day. But see, again, it's not like I don't understand their question. I do. But it's that I was going about it in a different manner and thinking about it in a different way than they were.
Yeah.
So it was just more of I saw these things as misunderstandings, but ultimately, look, it's my opinion. It is not a fact. It is my opinion that there's only one thing that stopped this train. Anybody have a guess?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead, Colin. Take a shot.
The songwriter?
Oh, actually, well, okay. The presence of Bobby Steele is where I'm getting at.
Really?
So, because,
and that's been my question all along.
That's how I feel.
Is Bobby the reason that the record didn't come out in 1980?
They gave.
Interesting.
Well, again, they did note him on the 3 hits. I just want to, So, but beside that, obviously, it was on Night of, and that's that. So, I think look, remember that only so many people came in on the legal counsel because only so many people had the money to pay a lawyer to go after this thing. And factually, again, Bobby was not one of them.
Right.
And Bobby and them don't have a good relationship, and that has something to do with the way they kicked him out, and then did go into interviews and make it very clear to the public that their opinion, or they wanted to say that they got Doyle in the band and kicked Bobby out because Bobby couldn't play. And there's a notoriously terrible live bootleg recording of the Misfits playing after Bobby thing. And I guess the Undead were doing shows and Bobby was talking smack too back. And I won't even say the line, but in one of the songs, Glen repeats a thing about Bobby Seale as a fucking whatever, and says it multiple times. And this is out there. Again, I didn't make this up, so
sure.
I'm just.
So this is in 1980?
This is back then, yeah.
Wow.
And so that bootleg is out there and, was commonly traded and was known for is that the show that he says that? Yeah. Okay. So the thing is that Bobby always felt and always said that I never played bad. I played great. I was on my game. Like I showed up. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't on drugs. Like, things have been said. So again, things that had nothing to do with me and things that had nothing to do with those recordings.
Right.
So and I get that too. It's not my band. And I wasn't in the band. I wasn't trying to be the band. I wasn't trying to be bigger than myself. I was just trying to do my damn job and do it really well so that people like myself would be excited about these things and get quality releases that were thrilling. And the sound quality of this record is unbeatable within this band.
I mean, you have Henry Rollins on his radio show.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Spending hours going track by track, talking about how much better you and Alan's mix is.
Yeah.
And he's wondering that Henry Rollins, like close friend of the band, the guy that influenced Earth AD to be as extreme as it is, essentially.
Right.
Saying, this record is fucking amazing. Why? Why didn't it come out in 1980? Why isn't it coming out now?
Yeah, his quote, he didn't give it to me for the record. Neither Ian, of course, or Henry would give me quotes for records. And I understand that. Mm-hmm. That's them. But the quote, I think, from that broadcast, which was maybe 2006. Yeah. So his quote was, one of the greatest albums that never was and should have been. And I agree. I think Alternative Press listed it at not long after that as a top 10 unreleased album, of all time kind of thing too.
What's better? What is better?
But yeah, I don't remember the list, but maybe I do have that magazine somewhere. But
so how long was the development of this? Like how intensive was you and Alan mixing this to getting that master back, to getting art done, to getting everything before the band gives you signs that they're putting the brakes on it?
Yeah, let me find when by May of 2001 is when the notification went out to people, okay, from Caroline's legal team, and then the email that came to me is on Friday, September 28th. Now, late in the game, but I understand that. I definitely will take some fault in this game for sure. There's a point where I guess I knew that being so clear and straightforward about Bobby's involvement in the liners to feeling a need to represent his tracks in these recordings that Caroline owned, that there was going to be some pushback. I probably didn't go out of my way to exclaim that from the top of the mountain,
Okay.
So, but
what do they expect with this being released, if not for this.
Well,
being
okay,
released.
let's face it. I don't even think I could have made a mix out of, and I checked it. It's actually Doyle's on 10 of the 12 tracks. So I couldn't even mix some of those without guitar.
Right.
So it wouldn't exist. Right. And of course, it only would have
10 hits.
It only.
Do they want you to re-record guitars instead of putting Bobby out there?
Great point.
Well, like, is that something? Was that brought up, or was it just this cannot exist with Bobby's tracks?
No, I don't know if anybody even said that, because I don't think that was the game. Okay. Bobby,
it was. We don't like the layout.
Yeah, layout, liner note inaccuracies, these kind of things, and that's what was publicly put out there.
Have you spoken to Bobby?
I didn't speak to this time. No, I didn't either, because I didn't want to align myself with anybody. You know, I was already on an island, and I was going to stay there alone. So, I just guess I did. I noticed people were telling me what he was saying in certain interviews or things like that, and of course the web was coming around. It wasn't just crappy Angel Fire web pages and stuff. So, he was thrilled, of course, and I think there's definitely quotes in interviews where he's like, "See, this will finally show the world that I was playing well, and I was not all those things that people have said about me."
Right.
Damn.
Do I think that helped? Not at all.
No.
Right. Yeah. Right. Of course.
Right. So, he was very excited. He was very happy about it. I had very difficult time dealing with anybody who wasn't part of the actual deal. So when Bobby would want to contact me on a regular basis, it put me in a very difficult position, and I always hated being put in these positions, but it was just the way it was. So, and again, I wasn't even I wasn't an employee at Caroline, so.
So you've been gone from Caroline since '97?
Yeah, spring of '97.
And you're just doing this because you're the guy.
Yeah, because I've done it before, and I know it, and I know what's there. And
so
then
you're freelancing for them at this time?
I was. It was all contract. Yeah, freelance. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Is this passion or?
So
or
how
mix?
much? So within these 4 months between May and September of development, letting them know it's happening, making this mix happen, how much money is invested in this?
Oh God, I honestly, because I wasn't at the label side of it, I only know what, I was going to get paid a flat fee. There's no extension on that for me. It's a one-time deal, to do it. And then, but I know, they manufactured jackets and inserts and sleeves for the, the LP.
For the worldwide release?
Yep. And they manufactured the CDs. And I think that may have been like 50,000 of them, something like that.
God damn.
And then
we're talking,
and they got destroyed. Yeah,
they just get destroyed. Oh.
And Caroline eats that.
Yeah, it was a tough time. Tensions were high for obvious reasons.
Sure. Yeah.
And again, I hope. I don't know. I hope there's a sense with you guys that, like, even talking about this is somewhat still sobering. It's a very difficult thing, because I don't go back to this all that often, specifically, this. But I always say I wish that things kind of rolled out in a different way. I wish also that they had a better grip on their relationships. I wish that I could have had there was never a foundation to be that solid to build off of, because the foundation was a wreck. And, you can't build.
The foundation is different now.
Of course. It's different. It's based on different things. It is.
So I wonder, Tom.
Well, okay. I can tell you that after I did that, if you will, and with 12 hits, and after I did the Scream With Me book, because I was asked to do it, I can assure you that I will have nothing to do with it.
Okay. But they'll be using your co-mix, which is...
Well, I wouldn't know that, but sure.
I would hope so.
They have
Glen, if you're listening.
They have the
this mix is unbelievable.
They have the multi-track, so they can do as they see fit. And honestly,
they have the multi-track.
Well, it's Caroline's owned, so if if they agreed to do it, then and Glenn would, I assume, would want to mix it, then there you go. And you know what? I still feel this way. It's so frustrating to think back about all this stuff because I never thought I was going to do any of this stuff. I thought honestly that Glen was going to do it.
Right.
And I never thought that I would be the one trying to conceive projects and put these things together and do art because Glen did all that back in the day. So I thought that's how it was going to be.
Right.
Of course.
But that's very difficult to match up the goals and whatnot of a label with the goals of an artist with that amount of money and definitely differing opinions. And Jerry and Doyle also had different opinions on what should be done with these things and these masters. And
so does that mean that ultimately all parties declined this?
Oh yeah, they united over that for sure.
Really? You did it.
Yeah, I brought them together. Yeah, there you go.
You did it, Tom. Wow.
Is that like the first joint decision they had made since the trial?
Well, I don't know if the trial was a joint decision either. It's just kind of a forced hand. But exactly. I know what you mean. I don't know. I mean, look, they definitely agreed on that choice for their reasons, whatever those specifically are. They're the only ones who really know that.
They agreed more than a double cheeseburger. That's for sure.
Apparently. Yes. So, and look, at that point, Caroline wanted to appease that situation. And I get that too. I was over appeasing that situation because I tried that multiple times and all I got was, sand kicked in my face. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really care about trying to be that person anymore because I was just trying to get shit done and also trying to see it and create things, like I said, that fans like me are going to go fucking nuts for. And I didn't feel, and to be fair, let's face it, like if you look at merch, not Misfits merch, anybody's merch, a lot of times, especially when you get to become a legacy act, okay, a lot of times that merch from the official store sucks.
The worst.
The worst. And then you can hop on Instagram and you get some feed of this guy booting shit and it's fucking badass.
It's the best.
Okay. And so there was a point to me that there you go.
You know who has a great official store? Bad Religion.
Oh, really?
Really?
They get it, man. If you go to the Bad Religion store, they know the bangers that everybody wants. Mm-hmm. They're all there.
Yeah, and that's tough to see. I also know that, of course, a lot of people, especially in legacy acts or whatever, don't even want to bother with, okay, should we do an Against the Grain shirt? Well, fuck, I don't know. That was 35 years ago. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they know. Which one? Somebody on the team knows.
Right. Yeah. And that's important. So in a case like this, I don't think people are looking at the same way as I was. And I understand that. There are things that I had nothing to do with that they were making decisions upon, but I wasn't concerned with those. And I honestly felt like it's not even my job to be concerned with those.
Right. Of course.
Well, I mean, you were contracted to do this. You did it.
Yeah.
What happened after that is not really, it's who cares?
Yeah. I said at the end, regardless of anything, that if the guys feel this way about it, then I will walk away from it and I won't have to work with you guys again. And that's the way I meant it. If I'm that unwanted in this case, or what my vision of it was so unwanted, then I shouldn't be around. And
the simplest way to put your vision is that it should exist.
Well, I believe that. Yeah, of course.
And it's like a young me, looks at this as, oh, this is the Misfits, Oh, this is the definitive Misfits album. So it just never made sense to me.
I do love the fact that it became a thing in itself. And again, talk about, okay, first off, this project adding to the mystique, right? And I wasn't attempting to. I was trying to clarify things.
You're right.
And all I did was add to the chaos. I was trying to clean it up. And then even with the book, Screen With Me, I was just trying to put it all where you could just soak it all in one sitting kind of thing, and then look at it multiple times again and learn more and see more. And it just wasn't wanted by the band.
It's like the monkey paw. It's like we want to record a really great record, but and it'll never come out, you know.
Right.
Yeah, you know, it's
the
literally
bass
like
is out of tune.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I tried. I don't think that I don't look at it that I was some victim of anything. I think we were all victims of circumstances.
Yeah.
That this was an eventuality that I think it finally came to a head. And honestly, I guess they released, and I say I guess because I honestly didn't pay attention, but maybe there was a Who Killed Marilyn 12-inch that was released for Record Store Day, maybe last year or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay, right.
I got it.
Okay. So, so that was what?
That it says Glen Danzig on it.
Okay, so it does. Okay.
It's like the original. So I think it was him.
Okay. So so since 2001, since I last tried, not a single thing has come out about the Misfits. They haven't released anything.
Interesting.
So the OG Misfits, right? Okay. So within that concept, once I stopped trying, it proved clearly that none of them had the real interest, because that's the proof in the pudding. Because
which, like, you gotta just accept it.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Or at least not accept the blame or anything in any way. It's just, hey,
they don't want it.
I pushed it.
Do you think, Tom? Sorry. Do you think that if Bobby would have pitched in for a lawyer, that would have changed the outcome?
I certainly think that if, say, Googie and Bobby,
if they were part of that and they had litigation, if that would have
that, again, this is my personal opinion, being very clear that this is just,
of course,
a individual belief, not based on any fact. Yes, I would happen to think so. Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But again, the foundation was not there. It was never going to be that. The Bobby band situation was when, going down when I was 11. So
yeah, it is funny to think about me listening to, like, wearing the badge from the Coffin set and walking around with those CDs, being like, man, this band's pretty fucking good. And meanwhile, at the same time, all of this is falling apart.
All of it's going out. It's, and at the very least I can say, Tom, is that the work you did on this in particular made me a fan of the band.
Oh. Well, that's awesome. I mean, that alone is worth it. Yeah.
The way that has impacted my life now is insane.
That's pretty cool.
Very few other bands compared.
I tried to think about it when I was actually given the ability to put records together. I tried to think about what it was like to go to Stan's Record Bar in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. And every Friday when my brother would pick me up, he was 4 years older, right? So he had the car. He picked me up at high school. We would go to Stan's and spend 2-3 hours there every Friday afternoon in the evening and make it home in time for dinner. And to have spent the money that whether I earned it doing shitty chores or whether I earned it at a job, I took that money and plopped it down to buy this one thing that somebody put so much work into. And so that connection in between the effort and the enjoyment was something that I never took for granted. So I always wanted to put as much as I could into the things, and I still do that today.
Boy, do you ever, because let me tell you, those Witness re-releases just showed up.
Yeah.
And there was a moment where I put on Innocence, and I was reading the notes, and I kind of just teared up.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Because that does not exist. This is another thing. You made this thing, this beloved cult favorite thing that didn't exist. Now is a real thing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it was fun too, because again, I kind of look at it as you gain contacts, and you guys will feel the same way. Obviously, the two of you connecting through music, the all the people you meet every town you go to, and photographers or promoters or fans and whatnot. We collect all of this, and especially we can rely on it and lean on it sometimes. So I of course, took over A&R at Century Media in 1998 after I left Caroline, and after a brief stint at Revelation in Huntington Beach. And So it was kind of a rite of passage to be a huge Only Living Witness fan at Century Media. So I have those contacts, and one of my closest friends who literally worked as we hired him as a secret shopper at the holiday time at the record store I worked at in college, 87 to 91. And he's still at Century Media. He's the one who knew that the job was available when I got it in 98, to be A&R there. And he's still there, but he's in Germany. And to sit there and go, hey, dude, I'm dying to do these, Only Living Witness records, but I'm not going to do it as straight reproduction. I want to redo the art. I want to reimagine everything. I want to do double albums with bonus tracks and things and do all this. And he's like, as long as Jonah's cool with it, I'm cool with it. And because of that connection, I was able to have that flexibility to do everything. Wow. And so, it's fun to do this because you just want to make sure that when it gets there on the other end, that person is just fucking psyched.
I know that they are, because they look amazing.
That's cool. Thanks, man.
Of course. Tom, this has been so fun. I've had the best
I think we should I have like a couple general questions for you.
Please.
Yeah, okay.
Just something we have said multiple times on this show, that the Misfits are one of the most, if not the most important and influential American DIY punk band, underground band, whatever you want to call them. Yeah. I just want to know how, having done so much and been around, like where would you find?
Do you feel the same?
Yeah.
Oh, certainly. I mean, the influence that this band has had, not only in punk, but and not even in hardcore, because of course they're so adjacent, near each other. But and of course metal has become so adjacent to those as well. But in metal, I mean, that's how you see the effect that they had, obviously, in Metallica. I mean, if there's no Metallica, I can almost assure you, we wouldn't have been in a position to be able to pay the amount of money that Caroline did for those masters. How many of us would have heard of them to this extent that we do? They really, champion it. And that's Cliff Burton. That was Cliff. So, and then to an extent, Kurt too. So when you have this happening and when they're blowing up, think about the timing of these scenarios. Metallica is becoming not even yet the biggest band in the world, but they were the biggest from that scene in the world, at the time. And then, of course, they went on, but they were kind of beyond the Misfits thing by the time the Black Album came out. This is really that Master and then Injustice period where it was the shirts that Erie was printing for them, that kind of influence because they basically took all the things we loved. Grew up in Lancaster, PA, and then in New Jersey, they would always air the Hammer horror movies out of the Philadelphia channels, and Hammer horror are the Christopher Lee movies and all the great B and C level horror that was just incredible on Saturday afternoons, and just loved it. Well, Glen took that kind of passion and then infused it into music form. Literally, some of his things are almost like brilliant Wikipedia pages.
Yeah.
The Fly, Return of the Fly.
Here is this movie I watched.
Yeah.
I watched it at
awesome.
my house.
Yeah. Right. But he does it and then he brings that Sinatra vibe, which he does. And it's like, so all of a sudden, like, cause he's a little older than the rest of the guys. And so his influence in coming in with these crooners, and then there's this like twisted 68 and onward, post hippie thing going on. And then the 70s and the weirdness. And he's just, I mean, the beauty about all really great artists is that they were really just, and I'm not calling him one, but what some people would consider nerds. And Glen's like this like horror guy, and he's like into a band, but he plays keyboards. And that guy, he's weird. And I don't know, right? Yeah. Most people would think this stuff. But they end up in the real, and again, Rollins talks about this. I think he sent me something after I sent him a box set, and it was like, the vision of that guy is insane. And thank you for bringing it all together, that kind of, scenario. Yeah. And so I think we all caught that vision because there's so many of us, especially as dudes, who are into these horror movies and just that kind of, I don't know. And especially because he did DIY stuff, the art is so easily replicated. It's basically just silk screening and, really classic, simple stuff. And I don't know. I think that influence is so huge because not just because of the music, but also, of course, the music had to be great.
I mean, the idea of the Fiend Club and
oh my God,
it's just they had it all,
and he was so ahead of his time, because it was so, now that any of those things are freaking like literally thousands of dollars of treasure. I mean, it's just become so much. And yet the thing is, when you read the letters that are inside those Fiend Club things, when he would write personal letters to the people, maybe they asked a stupid question, he would literally tell them, that's a dumb question, but hey, thanks for writing. And it was just honesty, this rawness, this like real thing. And that was the bummer, because like when we did the Scream With Me book, it was literally a love letter to them. And then to literally have them go, we didn't want this stupid ass love letter. That's tough.
So do you know if they read it, or if it was just like, we're not interested?
Oh, they definitely seen it for sure. Okay. We sent them copies when the whole thing was going down. And I know Jerry likes it. I just know these people like it. There's no doubt. I mean, they look like freaking, same with Erie's book that I did. I mean, these books, I mean, they look like even though it was punk rock and it was to 75 to 125 people or whatever it might have been, it was, they look like freaking rock gods.
Yeah.
They look amazing.
When I worked at a Whole Foods in on the south side of Chicago, in the South Loop, Jerry lived in Chicago for like 10 years.
Okay.
And he would come in. I never saw it, but part of the reason I like took the job was because it was a bunch of metal guys, and he would come in and they would yell at him from where the counter was. You could see the entrance, and he would do the like, wah, from across the thing. And one time he like came in and was buying fish, and his car got towed, and someone said over the PA, it was like, Jerry, your whatever is getting towed out front, and he ran out.
Oh man.
And the reason I even bring it up is because he's Jerry only. He's such like a guy, and he is.
I've
a rock
only
god,
heard
he is
great things.
Yeah,
huge person.
He's cool as
huge personality.
fuck, is what I've heard.
Huge personality. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Misfits song, Tom? Like, what's your favorite one?
Well, actually, I would probably agree with one Colin mentioned in the beginning, was Hybrid Moments. Is probably the guaranteed go-to. There's some songs I feel like offer a spread across the styles of the band, not just the one. And Hybrid it's so melodic and so beautiful and so weird and so driving.
So hard to sing.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
there you go.
It's such a
it's so
intense
high.
Register the whole time.
Yeah,
right.
And it's got these like notes that shouldn't work in it. I can't. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah,
it shouldn't work.
I know. Yeah,
but it's perfect.
It's
somehow.
perfect, right?
The first time I heard that song, it was in a Jackass episode.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think a lot of people probably.
It was just on TV. I was like, oh, that's the Misfits. I don't know this song.
Right. Yeah.
Which this didn't come out at all until they broke up. Imagine that.
Well,
imagine loving this band and being one of the cult Fiend Club guys
the whole time,
and then hearing this song.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's always it's a very unique scenario, because you name all of the other great, especially if we keep it to U.S., all the other great U.S. punk bands for that era, or those years, that wave, and all of them released records and did that normal approach, which, Colin, is why you're sitting here going, but why was it like this?
Why was it like this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's just, that's why this band has so much magnetism to it. There's so much to sink your teeth into. And, I know by the end with 12 hits, I pushed it too far. Clearly I did.
Sure.
And I wasn't my intention. I was caught up in the excitement of it.
Why wouldn't you be?
Right. So, but I do realize that, and I was content to walk away from it at that point, because we had done so much. And the thing is that we did so much good stuff, through those periods. And even if they didn't like all of it, and I know they didn't, collectively, there were challenges along the way, but ultimately they all added to it. And the things that are happening today. Yeah.
I mean, is it something that you hang your hat on? Is it something that you're personally proud of?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Good. You should be. You obviously should.
I mean, you created those 2,000 promo copies that are out there. That's just another piece of the puzzle, baby.
Oh.
I'm going on Discog right now.
it's that added to it. Again, we talk of, I know I've spoken a bunch about Mystique, but that's only, again,
it's cool as fuck. And that's part of what got me into it.
Yeah.
Was like, don't know, man. You got to listen to the secret one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this
other one.
And it was like, another one?
This is that little bit of snobbery that we all have built into us. Like this thing of like making a mixtape, and you make a mixtape for somebody and they're like, oh, I didn't like that. I was like, well, of course you didn't. You're not cool. It's that bull. And it's totally dickish, but it's totally true. It's just who, it's part of who we are. There's always going to be an inkling to that. So this idea that you now were told about this thing that wasn't released and now is like, ooh, almost exotic because of the fact that it's illegal. I shouldn't have it. Well, of course. That's why. Thank you. This is why Motley Crue, Nikki Sixx insisted on putting the warning label in the middle of the Tipper Gore era of, censorship on music. And they put the warning label on Shout at the Devil when he knew straight up that they had nothing. They just wanted it on there because he's like, because this will piss your parents off. Yeah.
So
that's that kind of attitude. And, I'm definitely proud of those points, but I know that there's nothing perfect about that.
I mean, you got a lot done. Okay. Even if this didn't happen.
2 of 3 is pretty good.
2 out of 3 is pretty good, dude. Because Static Age is the greatest punk debut album ever.
What a crazy thing to say.
Right.
Wow.
And am I wrong? Static Age, TV Casualty, Some Kind of Hate, Last Caress, Return of the Fly, Hybrid Moments, We Are 138, Teenagers from Mars, Comeback, Angel Fuck, Hollywood Babylon, Attitude, Bullet, The Emperor Jackal.
And don't forget the other bonus tracks.
Spinal Remains.
Yeah.
And then, Misfits, if you're listening, they followed it up with the greatest follow-up punk album in history. That the world, most people still don't know. They know the songs.
Right.
Yeah, right. They don't know the version.
And that's the thing. And that is the thing about that, is that it wasn't, in some ways, I'm sure I talked about it with people at the time, and it was like, well, is there anything unreleased? I'm like, well, yes and no. No, not new compositions or unheard compositions.
Itself.
But the album itself as a whole,
unreleased.
to be seen as the vision of this man at that time. And look, I know it went sideways once what was really discovered on the tapes. That's where it went sideways. There's no question. But it was just so incredible. I did what I did. Oh, and I'm going to ask you guys. So I want to point something else about this record, is that there's a little Easter egg on that record in the music, because at one point during Horror Hotel, which is one of my favorites, would be a top 5. Is that he says a line, and I think Alan and I were just sitting there, and we mixed it over 2 days, mixed and mastered in 2 days, and he sings a line, and I was like, does he really just say when it comes down to me, when it comes down to necking with girls? And I was like, does he really just say that? So Alan, switching, instead of, for whatever accidental reason, he switched to the scratch track for us to listen to it on its own, isolated, right? Instead of listening to the finished vocal track. And he switched to it, and all of a sudden Glen actually sings when it comes down to burying the ghouls, whatever. And I was like, I just like paused. It was a different lyric. And Alan turned around and looked at me and was like, you want to use that, don't you? And I was like, fuck yeah, dude.
Dude, you know what's so crazy?
And we're going to do it. And
Static Age is so necking with girls.
Yeah.
And 12 Hits is so burying ghouls.
Burying the ghouls.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. All right. Yeah. So we did. I put that one line is from the scratch track. And,
that's fucking awesome.
And I
HardLore exclusive.
And I tell you, I don't think I've ever had anybody come to me and say that they heard that and they wondered about it.
Well,
it's
now
so weird.
I
think it's just so,
it's over.
Again, I think the mind already hears what they're going to hear because it wasn't a brand new song to them. So they were kind of like lost in it. And Alan and I felt like even though the scratch track vocal, as you could imagine, was probably not as highest quality, in the mix, we could get away with it and seamlessly. So that's actually in there. That. So The way it
I'll
comes
take
down
the
to-
ghouls over the girls. all day.
Any day. Yeah.
Well,
Ghouls before girls.
based on your Halloween expertise, Colin, I believe that entirely. Yes.
Oh, 100%, dude. Well, Tom, can't thank you enough.
Thank
we
you,
all
guys.
hope you've enjoyed this very special chat. This is our Halloween special. It's a little late. Glenn, Jerry, Doyle, Arthur, Bobby, if you're listening.
Robo.
Yeah, Robo.
This is out of love. We love the band more than any other
most.
band, and that's that, you know?
Very true.
Tom, we hope that you're able to listen to the Misfits again after the trauma you've endured. We do it every day, so not to worry.
Okay. Well, you guys are carrying a torch for me, so I really
We got
appreciate
you.
that. Very
We
cool.
Go
Good.
proudly.
All right.
Best
awesome.
band ever.
Very-
We hope that you don't go find this session and listen to it.
Yeah.
You're not going to love it. That was this incredible special deep dive into the 12 Hits from Hell. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Tom, for being here.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
See you next week.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.